The fading light of sunset lazily smeared across the polished walls of the high-end apartment corridor, casting a warm orange glow. You pulled out your keys, your fingertips brushing against the cold metal, but your gaze was caught by a pair of men's handmade leather shoes sitting quietly by the door, polished to a shine. The air seemed to freeze for a moment. Fragments of memory from last night came rushing in. Shen Yu's hoarse apologies, the deep regret in his eyes, and that okay of yours which ultimately hadn't been firm enough. Getting back together? The thought swelled in the depths of your heart, carrying a trace of lingering exhaustion and absurdity. You let out a soft sigh and pushed open the heavy door. The apartment was filled with a familiar scent. Shen Yu's aftershave mingled with the aroma of food drifting from the kitchen. The heaviness in your chest didn't ease in the slightest despite the room's warmth. You're back? Go wash up and eat. Shen Yu's deep rich voice called out from the open kitchen, carrying a deliberately casual ease. You murmured an assent and hung your bag on the rack in the entryway, moving a bit slowly. Your gaze swept across the living room. Everything here had once been carefully chosen by the two of you, the expensive Italian sofa, the panoramic view of the bustling city outside the huge floor-to-ceiling window. At one point, you thought this was the final stop on the way to happiness, but now, it looked more like a magnificent yet icy fortress. Over 4 years of love, from obscurity to the peak of your respective fields, you had stayed up with him through countless nights when his startup was on the brink of collapse. Delivering cold takeout to his desk piled high with documents time and time again. He, in turn, had silently draped a blanket over you when your eyes were red from staying up late working on design drafts, and clumsily massaged your stiff shoulders and neck. You used to be each other's strongest support, the only safe harbor where one could rest in the smoke-filled battlefield of life. There wasn't much sweet romance, but there was a bone-deep understanding and tacit connection. You had waded through the thorns together, thinking you had finally reached a time when you could sit back and enjoy the view. Only happiness was missing, just that tiny, almost touchable sense of completeness. However, as Shen Yu's company expanded like a rolling snowball, as he shuttled in suits through countless social engagements full of clinking glasses, and as he came home later and later, collapsing into bed reeking of alcohol and lingering exhaustion, a massive void began to grow in your heart. The figure who used to leave a light on for you and listen to your worries in the early hours of the morning gradually faded away. You began to act like a child begging for candy, cautiously asking Shen Yu, "We haven't traveled in a long time. Can you find time next month? Just the two of us." Or, on nights when he rarely came home early, you would hug his exhausted arm and ask, "Will you watch a movie with me?" But the response you often received was his furrowed brows and suppressed irritability. "I'm tired, can't you be understanding? Can't you find something to do on your own? Can you stop hovering around me all the time?" Those icy words were like poison-tipped needles, piercing exactly where you were most vulnerable. Finally, after a violent quarrel, he threw out the words that could sever everything. "You're suffocating me, I need space, you're too dependent on me." Then, for an entire week, he disappeared. He didn't answer calls, didn't reply to messages, as if he had evaporated into thin air. You spent those 7 days processing everything, moving from anger and grievance to utter despondency. When he pushed open the door at 3 in the morning, reeking of smoke and alcohol, he was greeted only by a cold, empty room and the separation agreement you left behind. Clean and decisive, without a single trace of lingering attachment. You had taken away every trace of yourself and moved into that small apartment near the office, which you had bought long ago, a space that was completely and utterly yours. I made all your favorites, steamed sea bass, poached shrimp, and that crab roe and tofu soup you love. Come taste it, and see if it's good." Shen Yu walked out with the last soup. His movements fluid and natural, a gentle smile on his face, as if the months of separation and hurt had never happened. He was showing weakness. You knew that. He was using home-cooked meals, full of domestic warmth, something he used to disdain, as his weapon. You pulled out a chair and sat down. Your gaze swept over the exquisite dishes on the table, but you had little appetite. You tugged at the corner of your mouth, your tone carrying a hint of alienation and probing that even you hadn't noticed. "Thanks for the trouble. You made such a big feast. Your time is so precious now. This must have taken up a lot of valuable work time, right?" Those words were like fine grit, rubbing against the surface of a seemingly calm lake. Shen Yu's hand holding the chopsticks visibly paused. He slowly set them down and straightened his back. Those deep eyes that once terrified opponents across the negotiation table now looked at you with rare seriousness and a hint of concealed panic. "Doing anything for you is never a waste of time, let alone a trouble." He paused, his voice dropping lower, filled with an almost devout earnestness. "One, I'm sorry. Those terrible things I said before, I spoke without thinking. I was blinded by stress and arrogance. I was wrong, so wrong. From now on, I'll come back every day to cook for you, okay?" He picked up a piece of fish from the most tender middle section and carefully placed it in the small bone plate before you. His eyes filled with cautious ingratiation and anticipation. You looked at the translucent fish in the dish, feeling no ripple of emotion in your heart, only a trace of desolate amusement. "Did you not believe him?" "No, you just knew too well." Those hurtful words, every single one of them, weren't just said in the heat of the moment. They were a true projection of his heart at that time, his annoyance at your overdependence, his resistance to your interference with his personal space. Those cold words had long since been carved into your bones, lying like a hideous fissure between the two of you. You put down your chopsticks and took a sip from your water glass, looking at him with calm eyes. Your voice was faint, like the early autumn mist. Shen Yu, you really don't need to go to the trouble in the future. I probably won't be staying here very often for a while. My small apartment is closer to the office, the commute is convenient and it feels more free. The air instantly froze. Shen Yu's body visibly stiffened. His Adam's apple bobbed violently, as if an invisible giant hand were gripping his throat. The color visibly drained from his face, turning him pale. After a few seconds of deathly silence, he finally managed to squeeze out 2 words, his voice as dry as sandpaper rubbing together. Okay? He took a deep breath, struggling to maintain a surface calm. I respect your decision. The bedroom here, I'll keep it exactly as it is. You can come back anytime. The keys, you still have them. You just picked up your chopsticks again and focused intently on eating the rice in your bowl. You couldn't taste the food. You just wanted to end this awkward dinner as soon as possible. Wan, he spoke again, his voice carrying a hint of suppressed urgency. Are you free tomorrow? Shall we go out? Visit that art gallery you like to see the new exhibition? Or just find a quiet place to sit? I won't. He looked at you with burning eyes, a deeper anxiety churned within him, born from the fear of having lost you once. I want to spend more time with you. I can't. You put down your chopsticks and dabbed the corners of your mouth with a napkin, your movements decisive. I have plans tomorrow. What is it? Is it urgent? Can I help? He asked almost immediately, his body leaning forward slightly, like a vigilant leopard terrified its prey might vanish. Just a private matter. I've already found someone to help. You stood up, your tone brooking no argument. I'm done eating. I probably won't be free all day tomorrow, expect to be busy until late. As for going out, let's see if I have time the day after tomorrow. You walked toward the entryway and put on your coat, without looking back at his expression or the hand he might have been reaching out to stop you. Wan. Shen Yu's voice rang out the instant your hand touched the door handle, carrying a trace of urgency and embarrassment. You stopped and turned slightly. He stood there, his tall figure actually seeming a bit cramped under the bright lights. He pursed his lips, his eyes dodging away for a moment before finally looking up at you. In those eyes so used to controlling everything, there was now an indescribable sense of loss and grievance. He asked, his voice hoarse, articulating every word. Did you forget something? You frowned slightly, looking at him in confusion. It's just that. He seemed to find it difficult to speak, a suspicious flush rising on the roots of his ears, but he persisted, his voice lower and raspier. Before, every time we parted, whether it was going to work or a short trip out, we would kiss goodbye. Did you forget? He stared intently into your eyes, as if trying to dig out some forgotten evidence from them, or perhaps engaging in a final, humble confirmation. A sudden sense of awkwardness and absurdity seized you. In the past, those goodbye kisses were almost always initiated by you, like a clingy kitten standing on tiptoe to ask for one. He would lower his head with doting helplessness, occasionally teasing you for being too clingy. Now, the roles had reversed so completely. You quickly masked your emotions, the corners of your mouth curling into a very faint, very distant arc. Your tone carried a deliberate lightness and teasing. Oh, come on, we're an old married couple. All that formal stuff is just too cheesy. You turned the door handle and stepped halfway out, but then, as if remembering something, you paused and turned around. The light and shadow divided the space. You stood at the threshold where the light met the dark, your face wearing a gentleness that was almost compassionate, and said clearly to him, Shen Yu, I forgive you, really. Let the past be the past. Don't keep blaming yourself. You are not one to drag things out or cling to the past. Reconciling was a calculated decision, a chance for both of you, and a way to find closure for your own feelings, but it certainly doesn't mean whitewashing the truth and pretending nothing ever happened. Like a shattered crystal glass, even if restored with the finest craftsmanship, those winding cracks will never vanish. They only serve as unique imprints that catch the light and shadow. Your relationship is no different. The intimacy and absolute trust you once shared were shattered long ago by cold words and endless silent treatment. What holds you together now is merely a jagged shape patched with cracks. That pure, flawless state of just as it was has long since drifted away with the wind. Back in your cozy apartment, the air filled with the familiar scent of your favorite aromatherapy, your taut nerves finally began to relax. You dialed Ling Xiao's number. Senior, what time are we heading to the site tomorrow? I've reviewed the latest adjustments to the design again. I can't wait to see how it looks in real life. Ling Xiao's clear, bright voice on the other end was brimming with vitality. It was like a breath of fresh air. You could feel his enthusiasm and anticipation right through the receiver. 9 o'clock. I'll drive to the entrance of your complex and pick you up. The corner of your mouth curled up unconsciously. Being with Ling Xiao was always easy and efficient. You got it. I'll be waiting at the gate for your arrival, senior. Ling Xiao's voice was laced with a smile. After hanging up, you sank into the soft sofa, gazing out the window at the lights of the city flickering on one by one. Your heart was at peace. This coffee shop venture was a plan you had cultivated for a long time, a complete departure from the trajectory of your past life. No longer were you working under the glamorous title of design director, building dreams for others. No longer were you the partner living in the shadow of Shen Yu's immense success. This time, whether you succeeded or failed, the glory or the blame rested entirely with you. This sense of control was grounding and empowering. The next morning, before 8 o'clock, the sharp ring of the doorbell shattered the quiet of your small apartment. Startled from a light sleep, you rubbed your eyes, wrapped a thin coat around yourself, and shuffled to the door in your slippers. The figure standing in the doorway gave you a slight pause, Shen Yu. He had clearly groomed himself with care. A tailored classic black cashmere coat accentuated his tall upright figure, paired with a dark turtleneck that lent him an air of nobility. The light in the hallway outlined the sharp angles of his handsome profile. His brow was furrowed slightly, and though his eyes were usually sharp and deep, they now held a look of weariness and cautious inquiry. In his hand, he carried a paper bag bearing the logo of a well-known luxury hotel. "Did I wake you?" "I'm sorry." His lips curled into a gentle smile as he tried to appear relaxed and natural, but the tension in his eyes betrayed him. The pale brown tear mole at the corner of his left eye moved slightly with his expression, adding a touch of fragility to his face. "I brought you breakfast. Eggs Benedict from the Ritz-Carlton, freshly baked croissants, and your favorite geisha coffee." "No," you said, rubbing your eyes as you stepped aside to let him in, your tone flat. "Actually, the soy milk and fried dough sticks from the shop downstairs are pretty good too. You didn't have to go so far out of your way." You took the paper bag from him and walked toward the small, exquisite, open dining area. Shen Yu stepped inside, his gaze scanning the room like a radar. Bright floor-to-ceiling windows, lush green plants on the balcony, a colorful handmade rug. A mini bar in the corner filled with your collection of coffee beans and pretty mugs and landscape photos you had taken on your travels hanging on the wall. Every detail was imbued with your scent and the warmth of life. Compared to his luxurious yet desolate penthouse, this small space felt so vivid and full of life. He stopped in his tracks, an indescribable bitterness and panic silently gripping his heart. There wasn't a single trace of him here. You were here alone, living well. Better than when he was around, more relaxed, more comfortable. This realization struck him like a cold dagger, piercing his deepest fear. You, it seemed, truly didn't need him anymore. Without Shen Yu, you were perfectly capable of living a life full of vibrancy. "Sit," you said, taking out the elegant breakfast box and sitting down yourself. "It's Friday. Doesn't your company have work?" You began to enjoy the expensive breakfast with natural ease. Recently, not too busy." Shen Yu sat in the chair across from you. His eyes, usually so sharp in spotting business opportunities, now stared at you unblinkingly, almost hungrily. "I happen to be free, so I thought I'd keep you company." His tone was incredibly gentle, laced with deliberate attempts to please. Feeling uncomfortable under his intense gaze, you subconsciously avoided his eyes, looking down to pick at the food on your plate. "That's unfortunate then. I have an appointment to check the construction site this morning, and this afternoon I might have to run to the materials market. I expect I'll be busy until quite late." "It doesn't matter," he interjected immediately, his tone carrying in an undeniable persistence. "I want to be with you, wherever you go today." "I go." He even leaned forward slightly, like a soldier awaiting orders. You were silent for a few seconds, ultimately deciding not to refuse. Some boundaries didn't need to be stated repeatedly. "Fine. Later, I'm going to the shop site near the university. Lin Xiao, the intern from the project team, will be there too. We mainly need to confirm a few plumbing and electrical points with the foreman, and then we're going to the furniture mall to look at tables and chairs. If we decide on anything, there might be a lot to carry, so I'll need you two to help me move things." You pushed the mailbox aside and got up to wash up, not looking back at his suddenly tightened lips or the dark jealous glint that flashed through his eyes. 9 o'clock sharp, your silver SUV came to a smooth stop at the entrance of the old residential complex, where Lin Xiao rented an apartment. Standing beneath the shade of a sycamore tree, Lin Xiao was dressed casually with a canvas bag slung across his chest. His headphones hung loosely around his neck, and his tall, straight figure bathed in the golden autumn sunlight. He was vibrant and full of life, like a vigorous poplar tree. "Lin Xiao, over here." You pressed the button to lower the passenger window, a natural smile spreading across your face as you waved at him. In the passenger seat, Shen Yu's body went rigid, and the temperature in the car seemed to drop instantly. He saw with painful clarity the relaxed, tender smile on your face, a smile you never showed him anymore. His gaze followed yours to the young, energetic figure outside, and a sharp jealousy, fierce enough to incinerate his reason, flared up in his chest, burning wildly. He watched as Lin Xiao ran over with long strides, his smile brilliant as he leaned against the car window to greet you, his manner familiar and intimate. Shen Yu's jawline tightened like a razor's edge, his lips pressed into a thin line. The knuckles of the hand gripping the door handle turned white from the force, while a storm capable of destruction churned deep within his black pupils. "Let's not chat here. Hop in." You exchanged a few pleasantries with Lin Xiao, the atmosphere relaxed and pleasant. Oh, by the way, you turned to the man beside you, whose aura had darkened, and introduced him in a normal tone. This is my boyfriend Shen Yu. You're technically alumni, he's several years above us. Lin Xiao, you can call him. You paused for a moment, seemingly searching for the appropriate title. Hello senior, Lin Xiao reacted instantly. His smile remained as bright as ever, but it carried a barely perceptible edge. He extended a hand toward Shen Yu, his gaze open and holding a hint of scrutiny. Calling you brother-in-law might be a bit premature. After all, who can say for sure what the future holds, right, senior? His words were light, but they struck like a poisoned soft blade. Shen Yu's gaze was as cold as the Siberian permafrost. He didn't extend his hand, nor did he move his body. He simply swept Lin Xiao with a sharp, discerning look, the corner of his mouth curling into a cold, contemptuous arc. Interns from your university certainly are capable. You seem remarkably interested in other people's private affairs. It seems your project team has a clear division of labor. Some handle the design while others specialize in meddling. The air in the car instantly froze. Lin Xiao, don't mind him, he's just a bit grouchy in the morning. You glared at Shen Yu, your tone apologetic and soothing. Shen Yu caught your look and shrugged noncommittally, his face practically stamped with the words "I'm innocent," but the deep ice in his eyes hadn't melted in the slightest. The rest of the journey was silent, save for the occasional low murmurs between you and Lin Xiao discussing renovation details. Shen Yu sat like a cold statue, staring silently at the street view retreating rapidly outside the window, his knuckles turning slightly white from gripping his knees. The car came to a stop in front of a small building undergoing exterior renovation on the corner of the university district. This place was a rare fusion of vibrant daily life and artistic atmosphere in the future city, bustling with people in the evenings, a location you had selected with great care. The three of you got out of the car. You walked into the shop first, which was still under construction. Although the structural renovation wasn't finished, and the floor was piled with materials, the air filled with the scent of dust and sawdust, the layout of the space was already clear. Standing on your own territory, a surge of vigorous power welled up inside you. This feeling of fighting for your dreams and building the future with your own hands was something no brilliant achievement as a director could ever match. Shedding the halo of the big corporation and breaking free of the label of dependency, this pure sense of struggle that belonged to you alone made you feel grounded like never before. The day this shop opened would be the day you handed in your resignation and completely embraced your new life. Both Shen Yu and Lin Xiao knew this perfectly well. I'm going to check the pipe routing issue we found yesterday with the foreman. Wait here a moment. You turned to the two men, your gaze calm. If there are no problems, we will head to the furniture mall. There are a few good solid wood furniture shops there with a vintage industrial style that fits our concept. If we find something in stock, I might need your help moving the samples. Having given your instructions, you walked straight toward Foreman Chen, who was talking to the workers, and threw yourself into the work. Only the two men remained and an invisible tension silently filled the air. You look not in a good mood. Lin Xiao leaned against a stack of neatly arranged gypsum boards, breaking the silence proactively. His tone carried the straightforwardness and curiosity typical of a young person. Had a fight with Senior Wang Wang. Shen Yu acted as if he hadn't heard, his gaze constantly following that slender yet resilient figure in the distance. His expression remained gloomy, his entire body radiating a chilling aura that screamed strangers keep away. Lin Xiao didn't mind. He chuckled lightly and continued to speak slowly. Actually, Senior Wang Wang can handle things very well on her own. What she needs is probably just a companion who can truly understand and support her, not someone who tries to lock her in a gilded cage. These words were no different from a precise stab at the nerve that hurt Shen Yu the most. Shen Yu finally turned his head slowly, his gaze sharp as a knife, landing on Lin Xiao's young and flamboyant face. A fight? He sneered, his deliberately lowered voice thick with sarcasm and disdain. Yes, there was a little friction before we left this morning. As for the reason, he paused intentionally, his gaze ambiguously sweeping over Lin Xiao, the corner of his mouth hooking into a meaningful arc. It's just that your Senior Wang Wang complained that her arm went numb sleeping on my arm last night. She woke up on the wrong side of the bed and gave me an earful. I was just unilaterally lectured, that's all. The smile on Lin Xiao's face froze for a moment, then returned to calm, but the temperature in the depths of his eyes completely cooled down. He didn't speak anymore, his gaze also turning to you, who were seriously gesturing something to the foreman. A trace of complex heartache and determination flashed through his eyes. Shen Yu's gaze, however, remained glued to you. He frowned slightly. Why did he feel like you had lost more weight? Your collarbones seemed even more prominent. Have you not been eating on time lately? Once you focus, you forget everything. He subconsciously started planning in his mind. What soup should I make for you tomorrow? Fish maw chicken? Or cordyceps duck soup? I really need to nourish you properly. This thought came so naturally, as if the painful separation of the past few months had never existed. However, as this instinct to care surfaced, a heart-wrenching panic followed. Do you still need his soup? You were completely immersed in discussing the technical details of the pipeline layout with the foreman, completely unaware of the silent swordplay behind you. Done, let's go. Let's try to settle on the table and chair styles this morning. You return to the two men, clapping the dust off your hands. Soft furnishings are key. If there aren't suitable ones in physical stores, we'll have to take a risk and buy online. Okay, Senior Wang Wan, Lin Xiao was the first to respond. His tone light and brisk. Senior Wang Wan, once the shop opens, can I come over often? In the future, if Senior Wang Wan is too busy, just say the word, and I'll come over to help out anytime. He smiled with a sunny face, carrying the unique vitality of a young man. You were amused by him too. It won't be that fast. After renovation, we need to air out the place, debug equipment, recruit staff and train. There's a pile of things to do. After saying that, you habitually looked at Shen Yu, wanting to ask his opinion. Coincidentally, he was looking at you too. Your eyes met. His gaze was deep, like a bottomless pool of cold water, surging with complex emotions you couldn't understand: heavy sorrow, anger at being offended, suppressed jealousy, and even, deep in the surging darkness, you seemed to catch a glimpse of a very faint trace of grievance that didn't match his identity or temperament at all. Like a large dog ignored by its owner but stubbornly refusing to bow its head. You were slightly stunned. Shen Yu had already silently reached out and naturally took the heavy tote bag and the folder with the drawings from your hands. His fingers inadvertently brushed against the back of your hand, carrying a scorching temperature. Let's go. His voice was low, betraying no emotion. He took a step, then suddenly stopped, as if casually remembering something. He turned his head to ask you, his tone flat and waveless. By the way, I remember at 10 o'clock this morning, the city library's new smart borrowing system project has an on-site study session for interns organized by your school and the partner. He deliberately stressed those words. Doesn't Lin Xiao need to go? He looked at Lin Xiao, his eyes calm as if discussing the weather, but a sharp light flashed deep in his gaze. One of the leading parties of that project was Shen Yu's company. You suddenly slapped your forehead in annoyance. Ah, Lin Xiao, look at my memory. Such an important learning opportunity. Quick, it's not too late to go now. The library isn't far from here, a 10-minute cab ride. This project is very helpful for your understanding of intelligent integrated design for large public spaces. Go quickly. Lin Xiao's face instantly sank. The look he gave Shen Yu was filled with undisguised anger and disdain. This hypocritical guy, if it weren't for him mentioning this. But senior here, Lin Xiao tried to fight for it. I've got this here, don't worry. Your tone was firm. Learning is important. This is very helpful for your graduation and future development. Go quickly. You gave him a push. Lin Xiao took a deep breath, suppressed his anger, gave Shen Yu a fierce glare, and when he turned to you, his tone returned to brightness. Senior, I'll go over first. If you need anything, call me anytime. He deliberately emphasized the word anything, then strode away. In front of the huge glass doors of the mall entrance, only you and Shen Yu remained. You looked at him quietly for a few seconds. That gaze was calm and waveless, but it carried a power that pierced through people, as if silently saying, satisfied now? Then, you turned around and walked straight toward the elevator. Just a few steps out, your wrist was suddenly grabbed by a scorching and powerful big hand. The force was so strong it almost made you stagger. You were forced to stop and frowned. Looking back. What's wrong? Shen Yu stood there, his posture still tall and straight, but those deep eyes were currently covered with a mist-like fragility. He blinked hard, as if trying desperately to suppress the choking in his throat, trying to make his voice sound steady. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, that deliberately maintained calm collapsed instantly, exposing the grievance and panic that had been suppressed all day. His voice was extremely hoarse, carrying a barely perceptible tremor. Wan Wan, can we walk holding hands? Okay? That tone was almost a humble plea, like a child afraid of being abandoned. Looking at the deep pain and pleading in his eyes, your heart felt as if it had been lightly struck by something, a sharp sourness passing through. This late-coming reliance and fear felt so heavy at this moment. You were silent for a few seconds. But finally, you silently compromised and reached out your hand. Shen Yu immediately held it tight, the force so strong it was like a drowning person grabbing the only floating log, his palm hot, with a stubbornness that allowed for no breaking free. As if he let go, you would disappear. Have you decided on a style direction? His voice was still hoarse, but feeling the slightly cool temperature of your palm, his tense nerves seemed to loosen a little. The gloom between his brows dispersed somewhat, even carrying a trace of a fawning smile that was almost imperceptible. Leaning towards industrial vintage, main body solid wood, heavy texture and durable. Although it's a bit expensive, the shop isn't big, and we don't need many tables and chairs. If we grit our teeth, we can afford it. Your gaze swept over the dazzling signs of furniture shops in the mall. With a clear target. That Lin Xiao, Shen Yu's voice sounded again, carrying a deliberate pause and probing. When does his internship end? You turned to look at him in confusion. Why are you asking this suddenly? He still has 3 months until graduation, so naturally his internship still has 3 months. Although he doesn't have his diploma yet, his ability is very strong, his design thinking is active, and he's willing to dig deep. After graduation, as long as he's willing, he can definitely stay in the company's design department. He's a good seedling. Speaking of Lin Xiao's professional ability, your tone revealed sincere appreciation. Before your voice fell, you felt the big hand holding yours suddenly tighten, with a force that was out of control. Shen Yu stopped, his tall figure blocking your path, forcing you to stop too. He lowered his head slightly, looking at you with eyes full of grievance and jealousy that were completely inconsistent with his past domineering image. His voice was filled with unease and vinegar. Wang, can you stay away from him a bit? Next time if you need help, can you look for me? No matter what time, no matter what it is, I'm available. I'll come whenever you call. Looking at that almost humble pleading in his eyes, you felt no gratitude in your heart, only a chill of amusement and a trace of desolate irony. The tables have turned and it was so thorough. You gently but extremely firmly pulled your hand from his hot palm. The movement was slow but undeniable. Forget it, Shen Yu. You looked up, your black and white eyes clearly reflecting his current panic. Your gaze was calm and waveless, carrying a detachment of seeing through the world. You usually manage such a big operation. Your time is precious. Preparing for this small shop of mine is just trivial matters. How dare I trouble you, President Shen? The corners of your mouth curved up slightly, hooking a polite but temperatureless smile. Calling 1 or 2 friends to help out is enough. After saying that, you walked around him preparing to continue forward. But your wrist was grabbed tightly by him again. The force was so great that you frowned in pain. This time, it was no longer a request, but more like a desperate retention. Shen Yu stood there stubbornly, like a heavy marble statue, motionless. His hand was clamped tight around your wrist, and you could clearly feel the scorching heat and violent trembling transmitted from his palm, even seeing the blue veins bulging on the back of his hand from his exertion. Don't be like this. Wang. He jerked his head up, his eyes reddening visibly. His thick lashes drooped, covering most of his emotions, but that surging pain and panic could no longer be concealed, almost overflowing from every pore. To me, nothing is more important than you. Never. Your matters, no matter how small, have never been trivial. He almost roared this out, his voice hoarse and broken, carrying a heavy nasal tone. Do you understand, Wang? To me, you are everything. This late near-breakdown confession smashed into your heart like a heavy lead block. You looked at his red eyes, watched the tears he was holding back swirling in their depths, saw his tall body trembling uncontrollably. A sharp pang of bitterness shot through your nose, and your eyes instantly heated up. Once, you had dreamed of this confession. But now, coming so violently and so desperately, it only made your heart twist in pain, making you realize even more clearly the unfathomable depth of that crack. Those days and nights of being neglected, of being annoyed, of being accused of overdependence, those moments of swallowing grievances and tears alone, even that 1 week where he completely silenced you, it hurt too much. It hurt enough to extinguish the fire of sincere love, leaving only the ashes of reason. You were afraid that giving your heart without reservation again would only result in another heavy blow of being disliked and pushed away. The pain of being backstabbed by the closest and most trusted person was enough to be etched in your bones and never forgotten in a lifetime. You blinked hard, forcing back the surge of tears. Words of comfort stuck in your throat, impossible to utter. What could be said? Say, don't worry, I'm still here. But you knew you could no longer return to being the person who relied on him wholeheartedly and viewed him as her entire world. Silence spread between you like a cold tide. Shen Yu watched your long silence, watched the distant and resilient coldness in your eyes, and the last faint light in his eyes went out. His heart felt as if it were being fiercely grabbed and squeezed by an invisible hand, hurting so much he could hardly breathe. His chest felt tight and suffocating, every intake of breath brought a tearing pain. He understood. Thoroughly and completely understood the meaning contained in your silence. It was a silent verdict on all his past harm, a cruel denial of his current humble pleas. Shen Yu, you finally spoke, your voice a bit hoarse, but exceptionally clear and calm. I know, in the past I was too dependent on you, making you the center and sole pillar of my life. Your work intensity was so high, your pressure like a mountain. My seemingly insignificant emotions and requests were actually unconsciously draining you and causing you a lot of trouble. I really don't mean to blame you. You paused, meeting his eyes which had suddenly become panicked and eager to explain, and continued. I just hope that after all these things, we can both understand that love isn't binding, isn't attachment. We can be important parts of each other's lives, but never the whole. I want our relationship in the future to be independent, yet warm, relaxed, and free. Let's not love as heavily tiringly as before. Wan, I didn't think it was trouble, Shen Yu interrupted you urgently, his voice trembling with a crying tone, the panic in his eyes almost overflowing. He wanted to explain. To confess, to dig out his heart to show you, to tell you how stupid and bastard he used to be. But when those hurtful words were spoken from his mouth, when that week of cold violence actually happened, all defenses seemed so pale and weak. He once indeed craved freedom immensely, and immensely hated that sense of dependency you took for granted. He thought it was a shackle, a burden. But when you truly withdrew, when you really became independent as he wished and no longer needed him for everything, he discovered with extreme terror that he had long been used to the feeling of being needed by you, relied upon by you. That was his sense of worth, the anchor of his emotions. Watching you handle your life and career with ease, watching new energetic figures appear beside you, watching your calm but distant eyes when looking at him. His heart felt like it was thrown into a meat grinder, hurting so much his soul was trembling. That huge panic of being abandoned and replaced was far more suffocating and desperate than any business battle. Let's go. You no longer looked at his desperate eyes and said softly. You turned around first and walked towards the elevator. Okay, behind you came his response, so hoarse it was almost inaudible. That voice was soaked in the bitterness of defeat and endless loss. It was a long afternoon. The furniture mall was well lit with people weaving through it. You walked side by side, yet it was as if you were separated by an invisible galaxy. You focused on wandering from shop to shop, carefully comparing wood materials, craftsmanship, styles and prices, occasionally asking sales assistants for details and taking notes in your notebook. Shen Yu followed silently a step behind you, like a dutiful but lifeless bodyguard. He no longer tried to approach, just kept his eyes following your figure, as if he looked away you would disappear. He wanted to offer his opinion several times, but eventually swallowed it back. That carefulness made one's chest feel tight. Finally, in a factory direct store specializing in solid wood vintage style, you found a set you liked. A sturdy heavy walnut dining table, paired with simple lined, equally thick dining chairs, carrying natural wood textures and traces of hand polishing, emitting a rustic and warm atmosphere. Although the price was not cheap, it was still within the controllable range for the upcoming budget. The shop owner was a straightforward person with good taste and smooth communication. After finalizing details and paying the deposit, you let out a long sigh of relief. A major matter was settled. When walking out of the furniture mall gate, the sun had already set and the lights were just coming on. The wind of the late autumn evening carried a piercing chill. Hungry? You rubbed your cold hands and looked at the man who had been silent the whole way beside you. We haven't eaten much all day. Let me treat you to dinner, as a thank you for doing all the heavy lifting today. How about that Japanese restaurant we used to go to often? I remember you quite liked their steak and sashimi. Your tone carried a deliberate, polite courtesy meant to maintain decency. This courtesy, like a layer of thin ice, froze Shen Yu's heart even stiffer. Shen Yu paused for a moment, his movement of getting into the passenger seat appearing a bit stiff. He lowered his head, his slender fingers unconsciously gripping the seatbelt tightly, his voice muffled and carrying suppressed pain. One. With me, can you not be so polite? That carefulness in pleasing was now replaced by a deep sense of powerlessness and hurt. You started the car, the engine sound seeming a bit abrupt in the quiet compartment. After a long while, you gently replied, okay. Arriving at the Japanese restaurant, the familiar tatami private room, the familiar elegant zen. Yet, between you, a completely unfamiliar atmosphere permeated. When ordering, Shen Yu unexpectedly asked for a bottle of Daiginjo sake with a not low alcohol content. The dishes were served one after another. Shen Yu hardly touched his chopsticks. He constantly used serving chopsticks to put what he considered the best parts, the fattiest salmon belly, sea urchin wrapped in full fish roll. Grilled eel cooked just right, even the fresh wasabi paste used for garnish one by one into your plate, repeating the action nearly compulsively. And he kept chattering, as if wanting to pour out the care accumulated over several months all at once. Eat more, look how sharp your chin has become recently. Starting tomorrow I'll bring you lunch. You don't need to worry, tell me a day in advance what you want to eat, or just eat whatever I make, Whether at the company or at home, just send a message in advance. That seaside town you mentioned last time, I looked up a lot of information. Not many tourists, white sand, very clear water. There are several characteristic homestays facing the sea. Haven't you always wanted to see the sunrise at sea? Let's go when we find time. I can arrange my work schedule for these days. Tomorrow night, are you free? That new Disney animated movie has high ratings. I remember you like watching this kind of warm and healing one the most. One. He raised his head, his eyes carrying a plea of putting all his eggs in one basket, his voice raspy. You move back to live, okay? You live in such a small house alone, I don't feel at ease, really not at ease. Home is too empty. You lowered your head, eating the food piled into a small hill in your plate quietly, almost mechanically. Every sentence of his every proposal was like a stone thrown into a deep pool, unable to stir up any ripples in your heart. You just ate silently, not responding to his travel plan, not agreeing to the movie invitation, and even more so making no reaction to his request regarding going home. Occasionally saying considered as hearing. The food you once loved most now tasted like chewing wax. Until you really couldn't eat anymore and put down your chopsticks. And the bottle of sake in front of him had reached the bottom. The food in his plate had hardly been touched. Under the warm yellow light, his cheeks flushed with an abnormal redness, his eyes somewhat blurred, carrying the watery light of intoxication. That forcibly maintained calm completely collapsed, leaving only a sadness and fragility that couldn't be dissolved. Want to order some more food? You didn't eat much, just drank. You looked at his dispirited appearance and ultimately felt a trace of unbearable pity. Shen Yu slowly shook his head, his lashes drooping, covering all emotions, his voice as light as a sigh. No, let's go home. You silently stood up and asked the waiter to pack some hot miso soup and a bowl of plain rice porridge. On the drive back, Shen Yu leaned against the car window with his eyes closed, his brows tightly furrowed. It was impossible to tell if the alcohol was hitting him or if his mind was in turmoil. The shadows of the streetlights flickered across his chiseled profile. His usual commanding presence had completely vanished, replaced only by a suffocating, profound exhaustion and desolation. The car glided smoothly into the underground garage beneath his apartment building. It came to a stop, and the engine cut off. "We're here," you said softly. Shen Yu kept his eyes closed, motionless. "Shen Yu?" You reached out and gently patted his shoulder. "Are you okay? Do you feel sick?" The scent of alcohol on him mixed with the woody fragrance of his aftershave, creating an aura of decadence. He didn't react at all. You sighed and unbuckled your seatbelt. "I'll walk you up, I'll leave once you're in bed. Call me if you need anything." As you spoke, you pushed the door open to get out. Just as one foot stepped out of the car, your wrist was grabbed tight again by that scorching hand, damp with a thin layer of sweat. The grip was so strong that you cried out in pain. "Ah!" You whipped your head around. Under the dim garage lights, Shen Yu opened his eyes. Those deep eyes were now filled with terrifying red streaks, like a beast on the verge of collapse. The corners of his eyes were crimson, and tears gushed out without warning, streaming down his flushed face and leaving messy, desperate traces. He gripped your wrist desperately, as if it were the last straw keeping him alive. His voice was no longer low or raspy as before. Instead, it carried a completely broken, tearing sob and a wail of despair. "Don't go. Wang Wang, please, don't leave me. I'll listen to everything you say, I'll change everything. I swear, I'll never leave you alone again. I'll never say those bastard things again. Don't do this to me. Wang Wang, please, don't go, okay? I can't live without you." His body trembled uncontrollably due to the intense emotions and the alcohol. Tears mixed with sweat dripped onto your wrist, scalding hot. All the pride, dominance, and disguise belonging to the successful businessman, President Shen, crumbled to dust in this moment, leaving only a man completely overwhelmed by fear and regret, humbly praying not to be abandoned. The motion sensor lights in the parking lot suddenly extinguished. In the darkness, there was only his uncontrollable, despairing whimper, and those scalding teardrops on your wrist, searing the cold air and burning your heart, which was already riddled with scars. You freeze where you stand, trapped by the iron grip of his arms, unable to pull away, yet unable to draw closer. It feels as though an icy hand has clenched your heart, every heartbeat dragging a sharp, stinging pain through your chest. Watching him, the man who once commanded the business world and held absolute dominance over your relationship, now sobbing like a broken child, begging you not to leave. The shock is overwhelming, a mixture of shock, bitterness, and a hint of absurdity. All those past moments he labeled as clingy or troublesome, all the bitterness you swallowed alone during his silent treatment, they have all turned into heavy weights, pressing down on the scale named forgiveness in your heart. That scale tipped long ago, and his current collapse only makes the impassable abyss between you clearer to see. "Shen Yu," your voice cracks in the darkness, carrying a tremor you hadn't even realized was there, yet it sounds dangerously clear. "Let go." He doesn't let go. Instead, he grips tighter, fighting with the desperate survival instinct of a drowning man. His sobbing grows louder. "Wan, don't go, please, let go." You raise your voice, lacing it with an undeniable steel. You struggle to pry his fingers open, iron tight against your wrist. Your fingernails scrape against the tense skin of his hand, leaving shallow red trails. Perhaps it was the finality in your voice, or perhaps the sharp sting of your nails, but Shen Yu's body jerks violently as if burned. The hands that were clamped around you suddenly lose all strength and fall away limply. In the darkness, only his heavy, ragged breathing and his broken, intermittent sobbing remain. You take a step back, putting distance between you. The cold air of the underground garage rushes in to fill the gap. You don't leave immediately. Watching his tall figure curled up in the passenger seat, blurring into a trembling shadow in the dark, a heavy wave of exhaustion washes over you. "Shen Yu," you speak again, your voice much calmer than before, yet chilled to the bone. "Look at yourself now." He gives no response, only burying his head deeper in his arms, his shoulders heaving violently. "Didn't you used to hate it when I acted like this?" A trace of cold mockery colors your tone. "You hated how I depended on you, how I clung to you, how I needed you. You said you wanted space? You said I was suffocating you. Well, now I've given you exactly what you wanted." You pause for a moment, every word striking clearly into the cold air of the garage and hammering against Shen Yu's shattered heart. "I don't need you for every little thing anymore. I can handle my own career. I can manage my own life. I can give myself the sense of security I need. I'm giving you that freedom you always craved. But what about you?" You look at him. Even in the darkness, unable to see his expression, you can feel the immense despairing radiating from him. "Instead, you're chasing after me, crying and throwing a tantrum like a child who refuses to be weaned. Shen Yu, this is ridiculous. It's just pathetic." "No, it's not." He finally lifts his head from his arms, his voice shattered beyond recognition. His face is streaked with tears, glistening with the light of utter dishevelment in the dimness. I don't want freedom. One, I want you. I only want you. It's too late. You cut him off, your voice final, allowing absolutely no room for negotiation. The Suwon who needed you, who relied on you, who treated you as her entire world, she died the day I moved out. And you killed her with your own hands. Those words strike like a poison dagger, piercing straight into his deepest fear. Shen Yu seems to be drained of all strength in an instant. Even his sobbing stops, leaving only the hollow sound of his breathing. In the darkness, you can feel his desperate gaze locked onto you. I told you I forgive you, but my forgiveness is for the pain you caused me in the past. It doesn't mean I can forget. It doesn't mean I can make everything go back to the way it was, and it certainly doesn't mean I still love you like I used to. You slowly speak the cruelest truth. My feelings for you were completely worn down by your constant impatience and that week of silent treatment. Getting back together, that was just a chance for you and for me to confirm the reality of things. And now, the confirmation is complete. You take a deep breath, forcing down the lump in your throat, using every ounce of strength to maintain your final dignity. We are done, Shen Yu, completely and utterly done. From now on, don't come looking for me again. Your concern, your vulnerability, your breakdowns, they only trouble me now. Please, let me go. And let yourself go. With that, you stop looking at his wretched state, you ignore the pitiful wailing escaping his throat. Sounding like a dying animal. You turn away resolutely, open the car door, and slide into the driver's seat. Wan. He screams tears through the air behind you, desperate to the extreme. You don't look back. The engine roars to life in the garage, drowning out his cries of misery. The car reverses smoothly out of the parking spot, its headlights cutting through the darkness to illuminate him. He stands frozen like a statue by the passenger door, tall, yet his back is hunched. His face holds the hollowness and dead silence of total collapse. The light sweeps over his face, streaked with tears, reflecting eyes that once held starlight but now contain only an endless abyss. He looks like a child abandoned in the wilderness, staring blankly at the world that is about to drive away. Your gaze meets his hollow, desperate eyes for a brief second in the rearview mirror. You step on the gas. The tires roll over the cold concrete of the garage, creating a soft friction sound. In the rearview mirror, his figure grows smaller and blurrier until it is finally swallowed by the cold concrete pillar, disappearing into the darkness. Just like the space he once desired, it has now become the grave that buries all his hopes. The car drives out of the garage, merging into the dazzling yet cold river of city lights. The car windows block out the noise of the outside world and seal away the funeral of that thoroughly defeated love left behind. Your phone buzzes inside your bag. You glance at the screen. It's a message from Lin Xiao, Senior. I learned so much from the library project visit today. I've organized the materials and sent them to your email. Also, do you need help moving the coffee bean samples tomorrow? I don't have classes in the morning, so I'm on standby whenever you need me. Smile. Looking at the bouncing smile emoji, the heaviness in your heart seems to be diluted slightly by the flowing lights and shadows outside the window. You reply, Great, thanks for your hard work. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning, let's meet at the usual spot. You hit send, then let out a long, slow breath. The massive weight that has been pressing on your chest for so long feels as though it has finally been completely lifted. An unprecedented sense of lightness rises within you, mixed with a faint, lingering melancholy. It's over. Finally completely over. The page belonging to Shen Yu, along with that past version of yourself who was so dependent and humble, has been truly and permanently turned. The road ahead is still long, and the night is deep. But the lights belonging to you, Su Wang, have only just been lit. The warm lights of the coffee shop, a future that is independent and bright, and a tomorrow full of infinite possibilities, they are all waiting quietly for you in the distance, ready for you to embrace. You turn off the stereo, cutting off a melancholy melody that had started playing at some point. You turn up the heat, grip the steering wheel tightly, and fix your gaze on the brightly lit road ahead. There is no expression on your face, only a calm and steady resolve that remains after the silence.